you think you are real. But what if you're not? Not in the way you've been taught to be. Not in the way others expect you to be. Not in the roles you've memorized and mastered. Son, lover, student, achiever man. The one they call your name isn't you. It's a placeholder. A decoy. A polished version of you that smiles in public but screams in private. A clever ghost you animate to be accepted, admired, understood. Carl Jung said it clearly. The ego is only a small part of the self, but you've built your entire life around that sliver, and now it rules you. Let's pause here. Look around you, at your work, your relationships, your ambitions. Who chose them? Was it you? Or was it the echo of someone else's approval, the desire to be seen, to be applauded, to be enough? You've performed for so long, you've forgotten what silence feels like. You don't remember a single moment in your adult life that wasn't being watched. By parents, partners, peers, or worse, by yourself. You've become your own prison guard. There is no need for shackles when the inmate builds the cage himself. The ego is brilliant. It gives you an identity. It helps you function, set goals, wake up with purpose. But like all brilliant tools, it's dangerous in the hands of someone who thinks it's them. Your ego doesn't care about truth. It cares about control, about coherence. It wants a tidy story to tell the world, so it edits you. It buries your shadows. It amputates your contradictions. It silences your hunger and rewrites your rage into polite, acceptable narratives. It turns your soul into a resume, your voice into a script, your eyes into mirrors, always looking outward, never inward. And maybe that's why you feel it. That low hum of emptiness. That subtle ache behind your victories. That haunting question you never say aloud. Why does none of this feel real? You built the perfect life on paper, but the paper doesn't bleed. You followed the rules, but the rules never led you home. You smile when you should, but your smile doesn't reach your soul. And late at night, when the screens go dark and the applause fades, you hear it, the gnawing, the hollowness, the quiet, merciless voice that whispers, "This isn't you." Here's the tragedy: you weren't always this way. There was a boy inside you once, wild, strange, electric. He didn't know who he was, but he was. Before the world told him how to sit, how to act, how to speak, how to be. Before the performance. He wasn't trying to be liked. He wasn't trying to be understood. He wasn't trying at all. He just was. But somewhere along the way, that boy was buried beneath the mask. Not because you were weak, but because you were wise. You sensed early what got you love, what earned praise, what kept you safe. And so, like all of us, you adapted, you curated, you betrayed yourself, just enough to survive. And now you're starving. Jung didn't blame the ego. He saw it as necessary. A bridge, not a destination. But here's the problem: you mistook the bridge for the home. You built your life around a survival strategy. You over-identified with the mask. And now, the more you succeed, the more you feel like a fraud. Because deep down, you know the man they see isn't the one you are. He's a projection, a mannequin of control, an avatar of someone playing at being alive. And the self, the full, chaotic, divine self, is locked in the basement, pounding the walls. This is the paradox: the ego is an illusion, but you need it. It's a map, a model, a tool. But the moment you believe it is you, you're lost. Like mistaking the reflection for the face. Like falling in love with the shadow of a flame. You become an actor who forgets he's acting. A mask that thinks it's a man. A soul that forgot its name. So this video is not here to tell you to kill your ego. That's spiritual theater. You don't kill the ego. You dethrone it. You stop worshiping it. You put it in its place. You learn to wear the mask with precision, but never let it seal to your skin. You let the ego serve your soul, not smother it. And that's the work ahead of us. Because if you want to live fully, if you want to burn with purpose, walk with presence, love with depth, you must walk the path of individuation. You must descend into your unconscious, Wrestle your shadows, integrate your chaos, and re-emerge not as a polished ego, but as a whole man, not a role, not a title, not a script, but a self. This is what Jung meant when he said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." You must confront the false self you've become. To remember the truth you buried, you must turn toward the mask, not to destroy it, but to see through it. Only then will the illusion break. Only then will the real you begin to speak. Let me know and I'll move on to section 2, the premise, where we expose the lie of authenticity and how ego subtly seduces you into worshiping yourself instead of becoming yourself. You've been told to be yourself, to live your truth, to show up authentically. But no one told you what the hell that actually means. So you faked it, you curated your quirks, you weaponized your trauma, you performed your pain in bite-sized doses, just enough to appear real, but never enough to unravel. And then you were applauded for it. Not for who you are, but for the marketable version of your struggle. So you kept going. More vulnerability, more truth, more authenticity, until one day the mirror cracked, and you realized you were still playing a role, a deeper one, a clever one, but a role nonetheless. Jung warned us, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. Even build an identity around pretending they have. And that's what you've done, isn't it? You've built an altar to the god of authenticity, but the god never answers, because you weren't trying to be you. You were trying to be seen. And there's a difference. Let's name it validation addiction. It's not always obvious. It wears different masks. The deep guy who drops Jung quotes at dinner parties. The self-aware man who admits his flaws before you do. The pseudo-philosopher who uses shadow work as a dating strategy. The healed man who smiles too perfectly through his past. He's not lying, but he's not free, because all his honesty is curated. All his growth is strategic. All his self-awareness is filtered through a need to be admired. He doesn't want to be real. He wants to be perceived as real. That's not authenticity. That's spiritual performance. And here's the trap. The better you get at being authentic, the more your ego expands. Because the ego is a shapeshifter. If it senses that rawness gets you love, it'll serve you rawness on a silver plate. If it senses that trauma is trending, it'll dress your wounds in neon signs. It doesn't care about truth. It cares about survival. And in a world starving for connection, performing pain is currency. But you're not here for currency. You're here for transformation. So here's the premise. The ego is not the enemy, but it's a terrible master. It will do whatever it must to keep you safe, which means it will sabotage your freedom. Because freedom is dangerous. It requires risk. It demands change, and change threatens the ego's illusion of control. So it whispers lies. You're already healed. You're just being authentic. This is just who you are. And if you believe it, you never evolve. You just rehearse. That's what most people are doing, rehearsing their identity. Rehearsing how to sound deep, how to appear self-aware, how to perform masculinity, sensitivity, wisdom, whatever the algorithm favors. But rehearsal isn't transformation. It's repetition. And repetition becomes stagnation. You start mistaking your reflections for your depths. You start mistaking your self-image for your soul. You become fluent in your own persona, fluent in the language of healing, fluent in masking your hollowness with poetic quotes and spiritual metaphors. But the body knows. It always knows. It knows you're still afraid, still angry, still lost. Carl Jung wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Let's unpack that. Your ego builds a story, a clean, linear story. It edits out the chaos, the contradictions, the buried shame. And what's left? A highlight reel, a spiritual summé, a mask made of your best traits and your most palatable wounds. Then it tells you this is who you are. And if you're not careful, you believe it. You believe that the story is the man, but it's not. It's the shell. And a shell can't hold your soul. So let's call it what it is. Most modern authenticity is just ego inflation in disguise. You don't need more self-expression. You need more self-confrontation. You don't need to be yourself. You need to strip away everything that is not you. And that's violent work. That's shadow work. That's individuation. Jung's path was not about polishing the ego. It was about going beneath it, into the underworld, into the unconscious, into the myths and monsters you've avoided for years. Because that's where the real self lives, not in your curated identity, not in your authentic stories, not in the roles you play so well, but in the wild, ancient chaos of your soul, the part of you that cannot be named, cannot be branded, cannot be marketed, only lived. And that's the war you're in, a war between the self you've learned to perform and the self you were born to become. One is applauded, the other is feared. One is socially rewarded, the other is psychologically dangerous. Because to embody the true self means death. Death of approval, death of comfort, death of the identity that kept you safe. It means walking away from the known and becoming someone your past can't recognize. You say you want to evolve, but are you willing to lose who you've become? You say you want freedom, but are you willing to confront the parts of you that built the cage? That's the premise of this video. Not to attack the ego, not to worship it, but to relocate it, to move it out of the throne and back into its rightful place as servant. So the self can lead. He doesn't rage. He doesn't explode. He doesn't even raise his voice. He smiles. He listens. He nods. And you think, wow, he's so self-aware. But there's a deadness in his eyes, a rehearsed calm, like he's performing being present instead of actually being present. He's been possessed, not by a demon, by an idea, by a false self that looks conscious but operates like a ghostless. Controlled, predictable. He doesn't live his life. He manages it. He doesn't feel his emotions. He labels them. He doesn't walk his path. He strategizes it. This is the modern man's epidemic spiritual possession masquerading as growth. And it is far more seductive than chaos. But Jung called it identification. When you identify with an idea, any idea, you give it the steering wheel of your psyche. A political cause, a trauma narrative, a masculinity blueprint, a healing identity. It begins as insight. It ends as a mask. You don't express yourself. You express your programming. You don't relate to people. You relate to your projections. You don't evolve. You optimize the persona. It feels like growth. It smells like depth, but it's just ego in a spiritual costume. Let's break it down. Your psyche has two main characters: the persona, who you pretend to be; the shadow, who you deny you are. The persona isn't evil. It's adaptive. It helps you survive in the tribe. It protects you from shame and rejection. But the moment you start believing you are the mask, you stop evolving. You become an actor with amnesia. You forget you're playing a role. That's possession. It's subtle. You're healing, but you're obsessed with looking like someone who's healed. Conscious, but only in the language you borrowed from books. You're authentic, but only within the rules of your echo chamber. You're still afraid, still controlled, still fragmented. But now you've got the aesthetic of awakening, and no one dares call it out. Because you're saying all the right things. You're hitting all the check boxes. You're quoting all the right thinkers: Carl Jung, Alan Watts, Gabor Mate, James Hillman, even Nietzsche. When you want to spice it up, you become fluent in the sound of depth, but hollow at the root. Here's the deeper truth. You can't individuate while you're still trying to impress anyone. And most men are still trying to impress a therapist, to impress women, to impress their spiritual community, or worst of all, some idealized version of themselves. You become a curator of your own myth, not a man, a brand. Let's talk about why. because you were never taught to tolerate chaos. You were taught to control it, to manage it, to sedate it. And so, the moment you felt your soul stirring, that dark, primordial voice rising from the basement, you panicked. You slapped a label on it. You shoved it into a framework. You read books, took courses, adopted belief systems, and somewhere in that frantic search for answers, you put a leash on your becoming. You found safety, but you lost your soul. Jung was clear. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. But modern men aren't making the darkness conscious. They're aestheticizing it, posting about shadow work while refusing to confront their own manipulation, quoting stoicism while living in quiet resentment, preaching about emotional maturity while still terrified of intimacy. It's not growth, it's ego inflation. With better lighting, the ego doesn't care if you heal. It only cares if you look like you're winning. So if your healing threatens the image, the ego will self-sabotage. If your honesty risks rejection, the ego will edit it. If your grief feels too wild, the ego will intellectualize it. And worst of all, if your truth alienates you from the group, the ego will swap it for something more palatable. That's the invisible prison you're in, and you decorated it yourself. So what do? First, you stop performing. Stop optimizing your identity. Stop curating your authenticity. You admit, brutally, that you don't know who you are. That every role you've ever played has been a survival strategy. And then you enter the silence. Not the silence of self-help retreats. The silence of ego death, where you don't have answers, where no one is watching, where your inner child screams and the shadow finally speaks. You listen, not to respond, not to heal, just to feel. You let the masks fall, let the wounds open, let the rawness rise like smoke from an old fire. And in that terrifying, uncurated, unmarkable moment, you meet yourself, not the version you show the world, the version you buried years ago, the boy who felt too much, the man who broke too early, the soul that never got a name. You meet him, and you don't fix him. You witness him. That is depth. That is initiation. That is individuation. And it begins when you stop trying to be you and start letting go of who you think you are. No script, no slogan, no identity to protect. Just raw, honest presence. That's the first crack in the ego. That's where the light gets in. There is no growth without grief. No transformation without humiliation. No sovereignty without sacrifice. But here's the rub. The thing you must sacrifice is you, not your body, not your habits, not even your beliefs. You must sacrifice the man you think you are, the mask you've mastered, the image that earns applause. The false self, who spent his life performing worthiness, must die, and it will feel like death, because in a way it is. There's a reason most men plateau, not because they don't want to grow, but because they're afraid of disappearing. Ego death is not poetic. It's not a candlelit ritual. It's not a dopamine hit from a therapist's nod. It's the moment when your story cracks, when your justifications fail, when your inner narrator loses the plot, and there's nothing left but silence. The lie of self-improvement is that you can evolve without shedding skin, that you can gain something without losing something, that you can become a king while holding on to the boy. But the boy won't make it through the fire. He's not supposed to. And that's what stings. Because that boy was your identity, your compass. But he was also your cage, built from trauma, reinforced by fear, sanctified by survival. And to break free, you must betray him. This is the psychological betrayal Jung talked about. It's the moment you stop rescuing the wounded child inside you and start challenging him. Not with cruelty, with sovereignty. You say, I see you, I honor you, but I will not let you run this life anymore, because the boy was designed to avoid pain, to please, to hide, to fantasize. But the man, the integrated, initiated man, walks into pain with his eyes open. Most men avoid this turn. They circle the fire, they study the flames, they quote poets who walk through it. But when it's time to step in, they hesitate. Because the fire doesn't just burn illusions, it burns safety, it burns certainty, it burns the sweet lie that you're enough just as you are. And in that burning, something ancient is reborn, not better, but truer, not stronger, but emptier of noise, of image, of falsehood. This is not just psychological, it's archetypal. Every man must face this descent. In mythology, it's Orpheus descending into the underworld. In Jungian terms, it's the confrontation with the shadow. In spiritual language, it's the dark night of the soul. It's the collapse of identity, the rupture of illusion, the confrontation with the real. Not the truth in books. The truth you feel in your gut when no one's watching. When the lights are off. When the persona slips. When your soul asks, who are you without the performance? And you have no answer. That's the shift. Not a change in mindset, a change in being. You stop talking about depth. You embody it. You stop trying to prove your masculinity. You live it. You stop playing God. You surrender to something bigger than your ego. This is where individuation begins, the sacred separation. You don't become yourself. You unbecome everything you're not, layer by layer, lie by lie, until the only thing left is the unfiltered self. The man beneath the man, the soul behind the soldier, the truth you buried beneath 10,000 strategies for survival. You don't find him, you remember him. But here's the warning: the world will resist your shift, because the world needs you small, predictable, brandable. Your woman might feel threatened. Your friends might pull away. Your therapist might not understand. Your old self will scream. Because when you kill the false self, you also kill the systems that depended on him. And you must be ready to walk alone, not forever, but long enough to know who you are without mirrors. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But privilege demands price, and the price is the death of comfort. Just raw, honest presence. That's the first crack in the ego. That's where the light gets in. The death of applause, the death of the curated, polished version of you. So if you're serious about sovereignty, stop asking, "How can I fix myself?" And start asking, "What am I still pretending to be?" Because that's where the rot lives. In the pretending, the posing, the pleasing. It's not that you're broken. It's that you've spent your whole life trying to look whole. And now you must let the cracks show. Let the mask rot. Let the ego grieve. The death of the false self is not an ending. It's a threshold, a door into something unshakable. Wild, rooted. But you don't cross it by adding more. You cross it by releasing everything, even the parts of you that worked, even the parts of you that got you this far. Because survival is not the same as freedom. And if you want to be free, really free, you must walk naked in the unknown, stripped of image, stripped of script, stripped of who you thought you had to be. That's the shift. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be real. And real men, men who've walked through fire and come back bare-handed, radiate something that cannot be bought, sold, or taught. Presence. It's not charisma. It's not dominance. It's not charm. It's the quiet weight of a man who no longer fears disappearing, because he already has. And what survived that death is untouchable. Not because he built walls, but because he burned the house. Let's talk about weapons. Not swords or shields. Those belong to boys pretending to be warriors. I mean spiritual weapons, psychological weapons, sacred tools for men who refuse to be owned by their reflection. Weapon 1: silence. Not the silence of shame or avoidance. The silence of power. The silence that watches instead of reacts. That listens while others bark. That breaks patterns without saying a word. Because silence is a form of speech. A refusal to perform. A declaration of spiritual independence. And most men can't handle it. They fill the void with noise, bravado, humor, intellect. but the man who can sit in stillness without losing his spine. He rules every room he walks into. Weapon 2, observation. Not judgment, observation. You don't need to fix anyone. You don't even need to fix yourself. You need to see. See the masks you wear. See the games people play. See the stories trying to write you. You can't choose your path if you're blind to the patterns. But once you see clearly, your choices cut like knives. This is what Jung meant by becoming conscious of the unconscious. Most men are puppets, and they call their strings personality. You cut yours by watching, not reacting, not rushing, just watching. Weapon 3, non-reactivity. This is not suppression, it's sovereignty. You don't owe the world a reaction. You don't owe your past an explanation. You don't owe your triggers another loop. The world will provoke you, test you, try to hook you back into the role. But the untouchable man doesn't flinch. Not because he's numb, because he knows who he is. And when you know that, when yourself is not tied to praise or punishment, you become ungovernable. Let's be clear, this isn't about stoicism for Instagram. It's not about alpha, status, or emotional constipation. It's about spiritual weight. Men today are loud, performative, and exhausted because they're addicted to affirmation, to feedback, to someone else saying, "You're doing it right." But the man who has disentangled his worth from reaction, he moves through the world like a ghost king, not invisible, not apathetic, but untethered from outcome. He doesn't need approval. He doesn't seek permission. He doesn't collapse when misunderstood, because he knows being misunderstood is the price of being real. Weapon 4, embodiment. You don't think truth. You live it. Walk slower. Speak clearer. Hold eye contact a beat longer. Not as a tactic, as a reality. Embodiment means your nervous system is no longer hijacked by boyhood stories. It means your spine holds the line, even when your mind doubts. It means your presence communicates what your mouth doesn't have to. This is where masculine energy becomes alchemical, not just attractive, transformative. Other people shift around you because your nervous system isn't performing. It's anchored, and anchored men change rooms just by entering. A weapon 5, selective intimacy. Just because you can connect doesn't mean you should. The untouchable man is not emotionally walled. He's emotionally disciplined. He doesn't confuse attention for connection. He doesn't bleed to be loved. He doesn't share wounds as currency. Because he knows his soul is not content. It's sacred, and not everyone gets access. This is not coldness. It's consecration. A man who has integrated his ego doesn't crave being seen. He chooses when and by whom. Because when you know your value, you become the gatekeeper of your soul, and your yes starts to mean something. So what do these weapons do? They make you dangerous, not in a violent way, in a vital way. Dangerous to systems that prey on approval. Dangerous to people who only knew you as a mask. Dangerous to the version of you that played safe and called it wisdom. But most of all, dangerous to the lie. The lie that says you need to be seen to exist. You need to be understood to matter. You need to be liked to belong. You don't. You are here to embody the sacred, not perform the acceptable. And when you do, your presence becomes the sermon. Let me be blunt. You do not get to keep your performance and your power. You must choose. You can't be free and still wear the chains of likability. You can't walk tall while bowing to social media metrics. You can't claim sovereignty while craving affirmation. So if you want to carry these weapons, you must first disarm the boy within, the one who flinched when father frowned, who lied to be loved, who shrank to survive. You bless him, you thank him, but you do not let him hold the sword, because your weapons aren't toys. They're sacred, and they only work when wielded by a man. You were never meant to be understood. You were meant to be felt, and feared, and followed, not because you shouted the loudest, but because your silence haunted the room. The world doesn't know what to do with a man who's burned his masks, who no longer shifts to survive, who has chosen essence over identity. It will mock him. It will exile him. It will crucify him. But it will never forget him. That ache you carry, the one in your chest, the one behind your smile, is not weakness. It is longing. The ego can't explain it. Therapy can't fix it. Society can't soothe it, because it isn't asking for understanding. It's asking for initiation. You feel empty because you've been tamed, domesticated by comfort, neutered by politeness, dismembered by cultural anesthesia. You have not lost yourself. You abandoned yourself, piece by piece, in exchange for applause. You betrayed your fire for fitting in. And now your soul howls behind your eyes, a silent scream only you can hear. And Carl Jung didn't just speak about the shadow to help you feel better. He spoke of it to warn you. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, because once you do, there's no going back to being liked. Once you see your darkness, you stop performing light. You become whole, and whole men don't bow. You are not a self-improvement project. You are a divine paradox, a storm in skin, a myth in motion, a god who forgot his name. But you will never remember who you are until you sacrifice who you're not. Not tweak, not adjust, not manage, sacrifice, ritual death, burning the boy, grieving the ghost, letting the performance die screaming. Only then can the man emerge, not a better mask, a presence, a weight, a silence, a sword. So here's the truth: your ego will never be enough, because it was never meant to be. It is scaffolding, not a sanctuary.